Hey guys, today is the launch of the new Real Estate Center audio experience. My name is Jas from the Real Estate Center, and we've been in the business for a little over 15 years. And you know what? We've been quite lucky to have interviewed a lot of experts in that past 15 years. We've also had a show on AM 640 as well as News Talk 1010. Again, that gave us the ability to not only speak with top industry experts such as major economists as well as industry leaders, mortgage brokers, real estate lawyers, and we were able to bring that to the public. And the question that we've been getting recently is why are you thinking about starting a podcast? And we're not silly enough to think that by starting a podcast, we're going to be able to sell you on something. We're really wanting to lead with education and essentially answer many of the questions that we get asked frequently. So today's topic is, again, the most frequent question that we get, which is, how's the market? We get that at cocktail parties and at the events that we do, in the washroom. And, unfortunately, we have to answer that question with a question with, the question of which market are you referring to? So for today's topic, we're going to be speaking about the GTA market in general. And our expert, and I'm esteemed to have my colleague here and very excited, Simeon Papaelius, who's also one of the managing partners. Thanks for joining us today, Simeon.
Hello, Jas. Pleasure to be here and to kind of take a crack at discussing this. And I don't think it's a coincidence we're doing it today or over the last couple of days. I think it's very important that we cover the the end of the fourth quarter and the winter of 2017 and 18. Mm-hmm. As we go into, in less than 2 weeks, the spring market is officially going to be here. Mm-hmm. There's going to be, obviously, major activity coming up. That's when people come out of hibernation, per se, and they're going to make their moves, look to either relocate, change schools, kids are growing. As everybody's needs evolve, this is typically the time of the year that people make the biggest changes because they plan to close at some point in the summer while there's less distractions and make their moves. So as we close off the winter chapter, we have some very important numbers to go over.
It's funny that you mentioned the numbers and timing, because the numbers just came out essentially about 30 minutes ago in terms of what's happened in the last month of February. So let's jump into that, Simeon. Compared to last year, what are you seeing and what's happened in sales volume?
Well, sales volume is a big one because that's kind of the market psychology, and that's kind of what can have a huge impact on prices up or down. Mm-hmm. So last year, obviously, we were in the middle of a buying frenzy, so much so that real estate was a news headline every single day for almost 4 months.
And what happened in April? Let's talk about that.
Well, let's talk about it. So after 4 months of tremendous media attention...
This is back in 2017 now.
This is last year, time, when people started realizing that something's happening here. There is no listings on the market. There is 4, 5, 10 buyers for each property.
Right.
And that was simply fueled by extremely low mortgage rates,
right?
A pent-up demand inside the city, and no listings on the market.
Right. And people tend to forget that, correct me if I'm wrong, that, we're a major city here. I mean, we have close to 80 to 100,000 people coming into the GTA year over year.
Above and beyond the normal real estate cycle of people moving and relocating like normal human beings.
And right-sizing, right? Upsizing, That's right. Downsizing. I mean, people forget all that kind of stuff.
That's right.
But now, let's quickly go back to April. What happened in April for some of our listeners that might not know?
So last year's completely overheated sellers market, I should say.
Yeah.
Fueled by a tremendous amount of buyers looking to close and get in on the action in the Toronto real estate market, reached its pinnacle in April. And it wasn't because the sun was shining hotter.
Yeah.
The Ontario government did implement the Ontario Fair Housing Plan, which put a tremendous hammer on the action.
Yeah.
It came out with a specific number of rules.
Right.
Whether the 85% of those have been implemented or not.
Well, there's the foreign buyer tax that got introduced.
That's right.
Right.
And after 6 months of studying the actual effect of foreign buyers in the city, it was proven that that was not what was fueling the demand.
I think they came up with a stat that it was less than 3% or something. Yeah,
that's correct.
Interesting that the government kind of got involved, and
but that's all it took.
Right.
It took a serious hit. So the buyer was so confused, and didn't know what to make out of those rules because of the amount of media attention.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've seen this before.
But everybody just stopped.
Right. Put their hands in their pockets.
Everybody just stopped overnight.
Right.
So you had last year people, guys who paid $1.5 million for a home worth $1.3 million months ago.
Yeah.
So it's not like that 1.5 was a real value.
Yeah.
That was market value at the time, because market value is what?
What? I mean, that's the price that you're paying for what a ready and able buyer's going to pay and write a check for.
And that's because of supply and demand.
Exactly.
So the minute that you took the wind out of the buyer's sails, the boat came to a stop.
Yeah.
And it came to a stop instantly.
Yeah.
Now we have the summer starts to move. Fall market comes into place. The market is moving again. What happens in October? Forget the two small interest rate increases.
Yeah.
In October,
very minuscule.
What did the government announce in October that was going to be implemented January 1st?
So the whole new mortgage rules and the B20 rules. Let's talk about the B20 now that you brought it up.
So
I was going to go a little.
I know we started with this.
Okay.
I know we started with the stats.
You know
it's
what?
Just that when you get into, like, we're going back into a spring market
for sure,
and in only 12 months, it's a different world.
Yep. Yeah, but
I think it's important.
It.
Yeah, but I think it's important that we cover that.
I totally agree, and I think, on a weekly basis on this podcast, that's kind of what we want to bring to our listeners is real life, what's happening in the market. These are calls, myself and Simeon are probably on about, anywhere from 40 to 60 calls a day, and this is what we're talking about. And so we obviously all of our friends, families, and our clients are asking, what's happening in the market in terms of sales. So let's go back to the B20 rules and what that means and exactly what did the rules, like, what came into effect.
So if I guess if anybody's wondering, April came around, as we said, the market was stopped in its tracks. It didn't recover over the next 6 months, which is something we actually called.
Yeah,
that would happen
for sure,
because we've seen bombs land in the marketplace before, not quite at times like this, because the market actually last April was unprecedented.
Yeah,
that was the record high ever, and probably will be for quite some time.
Ever recorded. Never seen those kind of numbers in terms of sales volume as well as average prices.
Or the type of increase in how long it happened.
Yes.
So it happened in a matter of just over a year and a half. The market went up by almost 50-60%.
Which is scary.
Which obviously it's not sustainable.
Whatever goes up that fast must come down,
no
right?
doubt.
Using that kind of analogy.
No doubt.
So the B20, let's talk about the B20, because I really want to make sure our listeners understand the importance of it, but also the fact that it really didn't change too much in the marketplace. So just from the rule perspective, what is the B20?
So the B20 is it simply forces the lending institution to challenge any prospective buyer to qualify at a higher rate. So that is the simple premise of it.
So give me an example. Well, before there, just give me an example, because I want to make sure everyone understands.
Sure.
So if today's rate is 3.2%,
right?
Me as a buyer, I would need to qualify for 5.2%?
That is correct.
Okay.
Or the bank's posted rate.
Or
whichever is higher.
Okay.
So not the qualifier, not the rate that you're going to get from your banker.
Okay.
The bank's posted rate.
Understand. Okay.
So they post 5%, but then they give you a discount rate because you're because you're so beautiful and so good looking.
Well, thank you. I think I am.
There you have
I
it.
have the face for radio, I've been told. But anyways.
That's why you're on a podcast,
yeah, okay.
my friend.
We'll talk about that in another episode.
So, but bottom line is the buyer does have to qualify at either two full percentage points, 200 basis points is the lingo.
Got it.
200 basis points above and beyond the discount rate, or at the bank's posted rate, whichever is higher.
Okay.
The government's reasoning behind this, which we obviously wholeheartedly do not agree with. It's very unfair practice.
Right.
They did this to slow down Toronto and Vancouver.
Yep.
But they hurt the rest of Canada and every other market in Canada with it.
For sure.
So you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's just not what you do.
Totally agree.
But this is what they've decided to do. We're going to see where this goes. But the impact that it's had on the Toronto market, it actually, in my opinion, what we see in the sales volume and sale price, which we'll get into in just a few seconds, in my opinion, would be the exact same regardless of the B20.
Sure.
But what I think it has done, it has really affected that first-time home buyer that was borrowing or had saved 20% down, and they were going to get into their home as to what they can afford. Because now they can't afford. So if they were almost able to afford before these rules and get into the market, now they're forced to stay in their rental condo or in their rental for another year, 2 years until they save the difference.
So what I'm kind of hearing, again, correct me if I'm wrong, is that, the first-time buyer that was thinking about buying and now they're going to rent, so there's going to be more people that are looking into renting, as well as the normal amount of tenants that are looking into rent. It's one of the reasons we're seeing a lot of multiple offers for rentals right now, specifically in that downtown core. So it's kind of just made that whole rental pool that much more tighter, and our vacancy rate, as we're seeing again, is less than 1%.
So the rental pool can't be actually any tighter.
Exactly.
So in downtown Toronto, we've been at 1 to 2% vacancy rate for the last almost decade.
I know.
Just being real.
Yeah.
Right now, you're sitting at 0.2.
Yeah.
At 0.2 in the city of Toronto's downtown core.
Yeah.
So if I want to live downtown, I have no chance of getting an apartment to rent?
No, that's what we're seeing.
Or an apartment to buy because I do no longer
at least
qualify.
something that's decent in a decent, good area. That's
what we're talking about.
Yeah,
so we're talking about the average unit. We're not talking about special strip. Could you find a basement infested little hole? I'm sure you could if you look hard enough.
So let's dive into the numbers because I think that's what people want to hear.
Yeah.
So
ask me one more time. Ask me one more time about the sale volume.
The sales volume. Let's go right back to that. So what has been the sales volume in the last month of February? Because these are the hottest numbers off the presses right now.
So sales volume in 2018, we sold the Greater Toronto market, the Toronto Real Estate Board, which includes all the way from Mississauga, all the way to Oshawa, up to Richmond Hill, Newmarket, all the way. So York region, Durham region, Peel region is all part of the Toronto Real Estate Board.
And just for out of town listeners, that's essentially I would say approximately 75 kilometer radius that the Toronto Real Estate Board covers. Not a lot of people actually know, just a side note, that the Toronto Real Estate Board is the biggest board in North America. And so when they bring out the stats, it's why we like to look at the Toronto Real Estate Board stats, because it gives us a little better indication of what is somewhat happening nationally as well. So go into the sales volume.
So 5,175 transactions occurred.
So that was in February of
2018.
2018, last month.
Compared to, every time we talk about the stats, we're comparing year over year.
Yep.
And we're talking about a difference of 35% less year over year.
Okay.
So the sales volume was down by 35%.
Now that sounds scary to me, so I want you to elaborate a little bit more on that.
So what you can do is you can look at this any which way you choose. As a matter of fact, I'm not going to recommend one over the other, and I think that's going to be the component that's different about our podcast.
Yeah.
We're going to give you the tools to make your own decision as to if that's a good thing, bad thing, or indifferent.
Because we see it, right? I mean, we see it in terms of what the media does sometimes. They like to, kind of skew numbers, and we also know why.
They're just choosy.
Well, they're choosing, right? So, I mean, I always like to use the analogy, and we say it all the time, is that if there was a storm brewing around the corner, everybody would pick up the papers. But if you see, a very nice sunny day on the front cover that it's going to be 35 degrees, you'll probably walk right past it.
That's right.
It's kind of similar like that in real estate, right? We see it all the time. If they say it's all rosy and all the numbers are great, no one looks at it, no one really wants to even hear about it.
That's all we've seen in the last year, to be honest with you.
Probably going back to even a few years now, right?
Yeah.
So in terms of the sales volume...
So sales volume is down 35%. Is that significant? The answer is yes.
Yeah.
No matter how you look at it, no matter which side of the fence you sit on, whether you want to protect the interests of buyers and make the city more affordable, or whether you think that making the city more affordable has nothing to do with anything. The city's on a course, and it will take its course, and it is a growing city. So it doesn't matter what your viewpoint is. The whole point is we're down 35%.
In your opinion, what does that mean? And obviously we're comparing it to last year, which was the hottest ever.
Yeah.
Is that kind of really the answer? Because the fact that we're comparing it to the best reported month of ever on the Toronto Real Estate Board?
So my job is to transact real estate.
Right.
So if I have a seller that was on the market last year and a seller that's on the market this year, what would I tell them?
Right.
If I had a buyer that I represented last year and a buyer that I'm representing this year, what do I tell them?
Sure.
So why don't we do that exercise?
Sure. So I'm a buyer right now that needs to sell my home as well. What am I looking for? Obviously, every situation is different, and we're more than happy to sit down with people one-on-one.
No, but how more practical can this be?
Sure.
So, Jas, I'm a seller.
Right.
I'm a seller. The house right beside me last year sold for $1 million last March 31st.
Yeah.
Market is down 35% this year.
Yeah.
Why don't you come into my living room right now?
I love it.
And tell me how much can I list my home for?
Right.
And why?
Well, listen, I mean, it's funny that you mentioned this because I just listed and sold a home in Oakville. And last year, in about February, the homes in that area were selling for a little over $900,000. What's happened in the last 3 months, and so in your scenario, kind of coming back full circle, what we want to look at and need to always look at is what's happened very recently. And recent meaning trying to go from a 30-day time period to, and if there hasn't been any recent sales, you can push out to 60 to 90 days. And so Simeon, the seller, I would sit with you and explain to you what has sold. And the number that we really like to look at is days on market. How long is it taking for homes to sell? So going back to the situation in Oakville, we noticed that homes were selling now in that specific area for that type of home. They were selling anywhere from $775 to about $815. We stayed on the market for approximately a week and a half. We had 45 showings, okay, a little over 45 showings to be exact. We had an offer on day number 2, but I wasn't happy with it. I advised my client to wait because within day 2, we only had about 12 showings. I think that in today's market, you need to play it out. Again, every micro market is different, but what we noticed in Oakville is we needed to wait a little longer. By waiting an extra week, we were able to actually get an extra $35,000 just by letting it play out. And so, did that kind of answer your question, Simeon, in terms of what I would advise you to do as a seller?
Of course it makes sense.
Okay, good.
Of course it makes sense. Well, it's easy for it to make sense to me because I'm also obviously in the business, and I also know you for a dozen years. I think the best thing we could possibly ask for is to every single one of our listeners. This is not a show that's set in stone. Your feedback is not only we're not
wanted.
Let us request your direct feedback on topics that you want us to cover on the show. I want real examples. We are going to be going down this path every single time because education in real estate means tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars profit or loss to you. And it's us who have taken that responsibility on for our actual occupation to help you win. So,
fantastic
please.
point. I mean, I would like to reiterate the same thing. Get your questions out. You can select the below, subscribe. You can hit us on by email, by text. Get a hold of us. I do want to, just for the sake of time. I know you're actually going on vacation, so I want to thank you again for your time.
But let me do the quick boring
I did
one.
want to go back into the numbers for sure.
Let me do it the boring way.
Sure.
Let me just go over the quick stats.
Let's do it. Do it up, man. I want to get the numbers out.
If we could bring out another conversation by it, so be it.
Go ahead.
Bottom line is this: 2018, end of February 2018, the average sale price across the Greater Toronto Region is $767,818.
Just repeat that again, because I know sometimes people don't hear.
Average sale price.
Yes.
Of a detached home.
Yes.
In the Greater Toronto market.
Yep.
Not Toronto.
Yep.
Toronto's still up at the million.
Yep.
In the Greater Toronto market.
Yep.
Is $767,000.
Okay.
In 2017, a year ago today,
Yeah.
we were sitting at $876,000.
Yes.
I'm not talking about whether it was sustainable or not.
Yes.
It's a change year over year of 12%. It's significant.
Yeah.
So this isn't an opinion. This is fact.
That's it. Black
So
and white.
So to every seller, to every buyer out there, this is the history that was recorded. This is now in the history books. This is where the market is.
Okay. What are we
So
seeing?
the market is down year over year, 12.5 points.
What are we seeing in condos? Because I know there's been a lot of stuff happening within our team, in our office.
Do you want to start a new episode right now?
Well, no.
or-
Let's talk a little bit about condos in terms of the numbers. What are we seeing in numbers from year over year in terms of growth as well as the average sale?
So I'm going to stick to the stats because you're trying to open up a new can of worms.
Yeah,
that
no, I actually wanted
I-
to talk about the stats.
So
yeah.
I can talk about this for hours.
Sure, go ahead. Go talk about the stats.
So I'll stick to the stats. 2018, February. What was recorded in the history books, the average price of a condo in the greater Toronto area is $530,000. The exact number is $529,782.
Yeah.
Year over year, it's a 10% increase from $481.
Yeah.
In a market that lost hundreds of thousands of dollars, condos in the greater Toronto market throughout the biggest restrictive covenants ever been implied on a marketplace,
Yeah.
between the Ontario Housing Plan, between the B20 rules,
B20.
between 3 separate interest hikes in a year, the condo market is so unstoppable
Yeah.
in the city and in the area of the greater Toronto area that it went up by double digits again.
Well, it's funny because that's something that we've been saying, for years now, that the condo market is now the new home, the new first-time home buyers purchase. Because as Simeon mentioned, the average prices for a detached home right now in Greater Toronto areas in the mid-sevens. The average first-time home buyer is not able to afford that, and so they're moving into condos. That's one of the biggest reasons, just because of basic affordability. We're also seeing in that age group, the millennials, that age group of 25 to 35, which is funny enough, the fastest growing purchasers in the market today, even more than the baby boomers, which, we weren't
Well, they are
seeing
getting
that.
help from the generation prior.
The bank of mommy
That's
and
fact,
daddy are
yes.
obviously helping
That's
out, right?
fact.
And that's huge. But we're also seeing that, when we're talking to our clients in that age group of 25 to 35, so we're seeing that they're not wanting that white picket fence in the suburbs and the backyard. No. They don't. Not only do they.
That's lifestyle.
Not only do they.
The millennial wants a lifestyle.
That's all. They want to live. They want to play, all by work. Right, and so they don't mind not having a car. They are Ubering it.
But that's also maybe because they don't need to.
Well, sure.
Do they need to make the sacrifice their parents or grandparents made?
That's a great point.
Do they have to drive an hour each way to save $5, or else their family legacy won't make it? The answer is no.
Well, I was just speaking with a client 2 weeks ago who said to me, I want to move downtown, and Jas, if my walk is less than 40 minutes to work, I don't want it. Meaning, they wanted to make sure that their walk to work was at least 45 minutes to an hour, because that's how they're going to get their exercise in the morning. Also in the evening after work, they were going to stop by at the bar, the local bar, have a pint or two with their friends, pick up all their dry cleaning, do all their errands, because they're not necessarily going to the big box grocery stores. They're going to little mama pops or the Kensington markets of the world.
Yeah, the world's changing.
Right? It's a little different.
Yeah,
and
the world's
hence
changing.
why we're seeing the growth in terms of average price and volume when it comes to condo. And, it's always that question that we got, right? Like, when all those cranes, when you're driving down one of our major arteries here in downtown Toronto, the Gardner or the DVP.
Here goes Jas again.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite, right? It's not, who's going to be buying these condos. The right question to always ask is who's bought these condos, because a crane cannot go up in the city unless it's been 80% sold. And at that time, they'll get the financing.
The good news is my business partner doesn't typically ask questions that he doesn't know the answer to.
Well, I like to ask a lot of rhetorical questions out there as well.
So the truth of the matter is a huge segment of our listeners who are obviously our clients, our loyal clients, our friends, a good chunk of you are not just end user buyer and sellers, but a huge segment of our audience are investors. And I think when Jas says not only who's going to buy them, but who bought them. I think we actually have a really good answer. A lot of us did.
Well, yeah.
Our clients, our friends did. We literally sell hundreds of pre-construction condos a year. At this point, I think I don't even want to, like, at no point during these podcasts do I want to make the case of is this an investment that's worthwhile. Investing into your city's future at this point is not something to be second guessed. It's a matter of laying out a proper strategy, buying the proper location, having a vision, following the news.
Well, you must have my notes, because it's actually a fantastic segue into our next episode, where we're going to be speaking about different type of investment properties, because that's kind of the most second most question that we get on a daily basis is, what should I look at from an investment perspective? So we're going to be diving into 4 or 5 different type of investment types. We will be speaking with one of our experts on a specific investment type, but you're going to have to tune in to hear about exactly which investment type we're going to be speaking about. I wanted to take the time again to thank Simeon, as well as thank our listeners. Guys, ask us any questions. You tell us what you want to hear. You know, we've got the answers. You just bring us the questions.
And if we don't have the answers, we'll get you the answers. That's kind of our mantra in everything that we do.
I love it.
So
true.
Whatever it may be, pick the topic. Let us know. We're definitely going to be diving into condos for sure on the next one, and a few of the other topics.
Perfect. You said it perfectly, Simeon. I mean, thanks again, guys. Thanks for listening. It is the Real Estate Center audio experience. And hit us up. Thanks again.
Cheers.